Starting live. Greetings in the love and light of the infinite creator. I'm Andre Zvorgan, joined here with Ivor, Dan, Melissa, Peter, and Barbara. And today we're going to have Charles Hall presenting as well on agriculture, and Dan about coal to liquids. Mm-hmm. And first, we're going to start with just some brief updates about what's been happening in the world. And so, go ahead, Dan. We were talking recently on email about those EIA reports.
Well, yeah, we've got some reports out of the International Energy Agency, and they're saying how much money is actually being invested in maintaining oil and gas production. And I'm skeptical looking at it. I think I'm going to wait till the data comes out of Riot. And the reason why is one of the things we've noticed in the last probably 10 years that the International Energy Agency is a lot more politically motivated than factual motivated. And the other is the Energy Information Agency of the United States government. Last time I gave the presentation, I showed where, for example, by the end of 2027, that the United States oil production will drop down to 13 million barrels a day. Well, they've updated that forecast as of April, and now they're saying that the United States is going to increase its oil production by an additional 700,000 barrels a day. So that'll bring our total production well over 14 million barrels a day. Whenever I've talked to the experts, they're actually very perplexed if even that's possible. And the reason why is all the tier 1 acreage has been drilled out. And the only company out there that has any tier 1 acreage is Exxon. And according to Exxon's basically schedule, they'll be drilled out by the first quarter of 2028. So where the United States is going to come up with this extra 700,000 barrels per day is a good question. So, but we're looking at saying, okay, for them to flip 180 degrees from one report to the next, it's obviously politically motivated, unfortunately. So,
fair enough. Okay, Ivor, you have a question? You're just muted. Hey, Simon. Ivor.
I just wanted to mention there's a really interesting article on the peak oil thing by Steve Bull, where he basically says that the brittle fracture arrives why fuel prices are sliding as the world runs dry. And basically what I understand of it is the world economy is kind of like a float valve, like the float valve in your toilet tank. And what happens is it's really good. It keeps it going. As long as there's water flowing in, it keeps it like this. Well, the problem is we're not getting enough to keep the float valve working. So basically, the idea of oil prices are dropping because the whole system is kind of broken. Anyway, I thought it was very interesting. It's called "The Brittle Fracture Arrives While Fuel Prices Are Sliding as the World Runs Dry."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ivor, I'd like to add on to that. It's something that happened this week. I don't like going into politics, but before Donald Trump posted his post on Truth Social, that paragraph he wrote, about an hour before that, somebody dropped $900 million in futures contracts an hour before he did that. Right now, that's being investigated by the Department of Justice. And the reason why is that memorandum that he put out. If you go about on the Iranian side, what happened an hour after his post, the Iranians basically published that they have a new website for how you can get instructions for how to pay the toll so you can get past the Iranian toll booth. So obviously we've got two stories that are not saying the same. So what it looks like is we've got government entities out there manipulating the markets because they want to keep those oil prices low and to keep the political fallout as low as possible. That's what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Steve, did you want to try unmuting as well? And sometimes it's browser permission. Steve St. Angelo will also be presenting about AI in the Middle East today. Just having some technical issues right now.
And I think I finally got my technical issues muted. My headset just won't work, so we're going with the standard.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And I'm glad to see Simon's also joined us. Hi, Simon.
Hi. I've also had all of my computer drivers wiped out. I'm on my personal computer now. My microphone and my camera is not being recognized by the system anymore. And IT support goes, "Oh, we've got no idea what this is happening. It's some sort of accident. You're imagining things." Anyway, I'm of the opinion that I have no end of technical problems, and I believe it's because I pissed off a multi-trillion-dollar industry I'm being messed with externally. Yeah. Anyway, so hello everyone.
Join the family, Simon. Join the family.
So I'm going to take a back seat on this one, and just listen. And I'm here to take part in discussions, but others will lead today.
Okay, thank you, Simon. And Steve, I heard you.
Yeah, that you can. I can hear everybody. I could see some people, but for some reason, Andre, yeah, just like Simon, it will not recognize my camera.
I had a hell of a time getting on.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So you're being messed with, Andrew.
Well, mine took my camera, but it wouldn't take the audio properly. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I'm not sure, guys. It's the same setup as before, and I did a fresh reboot of the server just to make sure everything was clear before we started. Okay, so Charlie, you have a presentation for us today.
Yeah. But how the hell do I blur my background?
Well, that would take extra processing power.
All right, never mind.
Okay.
You can look at my closet.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you
Okay,
prefer
now how do I share? I'm ready to go.
You're ready to go. Okay, great. So go ahead,
Well,
introduce.
except I'm not sharing.
Oh, yeah, you have to share your screen. Yeah.
How do I do that?
So it's the third button on the bottom. So when you scroll down, there's the microphone and the video, and then the next one is the share screen.
All right, but now I can't see the things to choose what to share. Window. All right, a window. Now here.
You can, if you share the window, it won't go into presentation mode. You have to share full screen. Okay, yeah.
I got to make sure I got the. No, I get the wrong lecture. Just a minute.
Oh, okay.
Not that it matters. Let me see. Hang on just a second.
Okay, sure.
How do I open up share again?
So you click on that share icon again.
Oh, this one. Okay.
Yeah, there. Now you can try it and select full screen. That way we'll be able to see it in full screen mode.
Where's it say full screen? Entire screen. All right.
Usually in the bottom.
Entire screen.
Entire screen. Yeah. There you go.
Now. All right. Here we go. Okay. Do you see K-Core live?
No, I don't see your screen.
Oh, well, that's great. So what do I do now?
Well, I guess try sharing it again. Or you could share as window if it's not working, and then we can just go through the slides that way.
Share what?
Share the proper presentation window.
Where do I? Oh, share. Let's try this. Share. No. Come on. It's not Zoom.
Yeah. All right.
Dan, say something else smart for a minute.
Yeah, sure. Dan, go ahead.
Charlie, I wanted to tell you if you want to know your background.
So you're trying to have me bail you out again there, Charlie? Is that what you're telling me?
What am I doing?
Oh, if you wanted to blur your background, you just hit the 3 dots on the bottom and then go to select background, and then you can pick which background.
Okay, well, I'm not worried about that now. At the moment, I'm worried about getting my talk up. All right, so what do? I go back to what?
The share screen button.
Entire screen. All right, I'm clicking entire screen.
The entire screen isn't working, so I'm suggesting
Right,
that you
so
just
the window.
select the proper window exactly of the
All
proper
right,
presentation.
so then I got to get.
Okay. All right.
How about that?
No, I'm not seeing it.
It's in front of me.
Okay, weird. Okay, try refreshing your browser and coming back in. Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
So you joined through a web browser. Try leaving the
Go
meeting and
play your thing again. Start all over.
so
How about here? It says share.
Yeah.
Share. OneDrive.
no, not share
Oh,
OneDrive.
no.
No. Okay. Oh, Steve, we can see you now. I was
See,
gonna.
Steve, on me.
No, we could see you, but we can't see your presentation. Charlie, I suggest that you leave the meeting and then come back.
All right, goodbye.
Okay. All right. All right. Steve, do you want to
Bye.
give us a little synopsis of what you're going to present today? Oh, we can't hear you. You have to unmute.
Oh, of course. I'm
There
sorry.
There you
Okay,
go.
getting back into it. Just want to let you know, been away for 3.5 months taking care of old elderly parents, and so I wanted to get back here and put this presentation together. I've got basically part A, and what I want to do is a prerequisite to what I call is the AI bubble, and so what I'm going to do in this presentation is to set up where we come from and where we're heading now with AI. And it's a lot different than what the market thinks. So it has less to do with the Middle East, even though it has something to do with the Middle East. But that's what I'm going to talk about, because unfortunately, there's a lot of hype about AI, what it can do. And unfortunately, it's overpromised and it's too expensive. And so the market doesn't understand that yet. And so that's what I want to talk about today, because there's a lot of speculation that we're going to build out this massive AI data center build out in the US and across the world. And I actually think we don't get there. I think within the next several years, it's going to pop just like the .com bubble. And so I'm going to provide my opinion, my analysis on this. And then in another peak oil chat, I could give you more details about the AI, but I'm going to do a prerequisite before we get into the AI bubble. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And guess what? It's all based on the energy. So this is peak oil chat, and AI was supposed to devour a lot of energy and resources over the next 10 years. But I don't believe we're going to get anywhere near that build out. So that's kind of the presentation that I want to put out, because AI supposedly is being very disruptive to jobs, but I don't see that being a major disruption going forward. I actually think now people are starting to realize AI won't be cutting that many jobs as it intended to cut. And that's what actually the reason why Bitcoin mining and AI has become so big, because it was supposed to get rid of a lot of employment. And that's not going to continue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Just want to check in with Charlie here. Charlie, you can also send me the slides, as a YouTube listener said. Did you want to try sharing your screen at least one last time? And Charlie, I don't know if you can hear us. Well, I was thinking maybe, Steve, are you ready with your slides? And then hopefully, or
I am, but I feel bad.
Right,
I
can
wanted
you
Charles,
hear me now?
Charles
there's
to go
Charlie.
first.
Okay, Charlie, go ahead. We can hear you now.
Well, okay. I mean, where's my picture? All right, start screen sharing.
Okay.
Window.
Yep.
And then go find the window. Okay, here it is. Okay, it's on my screen.
Okay, and then did you click start?
Is there a share somewhere to turn it on? Like share.
There should be in the window you press. Okay, I think that the best option would be that you can email me the slides, and then I'll share them.
I'm able to share right now. Sorry, you cannot share this file. until it is completely uploaded to OneDrive. For Christ fucking
No,
sake.
you're unfortunately doing a completely different share that's not part of our meeting.
Ugh.
Yeah. So how about
Well,
you
okay,
just
Steve,
email
you
me the
go. I'm really
slides?
frustrated.
Sorry,
I like
I hear you,
Zoom.
Charlie. I was thinking that maybe we could let Steve go ahead for now.
I'm almost done uploading, but it's going to take a minute. So I guess, oh wait, it's almost done. No, that doesn't mean it's going to work.
It's just OneDrive has nothing to do with this meeting.
Let's let
Yes,
Steve share.
Okay, okay, Charlie, can you email me your slides? Okay,
Not
and
easily.
Okay.
It's a huge file, but I'll do it with we send it.
okay,
All right, just let me try this one time right here. Share.
it has to
I'm
be
clicking share.
so it has
Unable to share right now. I can't do it. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Okay, Steve. All right.
Okay. Again, this is my information. Everybody has different opinions based on the different data, but I think it's important to understand since about 2017, 18, we really haven't had any new technology that's been profitable. It started off with Bitcoin mining, and then we moved into AI, and AI is not profitable on any stretch of the imagination. And from what I understand, it will never be profitable the way it's being used. That could change, but the way it's being set up now, especially the build out, the forecasted build out over the next 5 to 10 years, it's not going to be profitable. And so it's hugely unprofitable, which is very similar to Bitcoin mining, which is, so let me go ahead and see if I can share. Okay, go ahead and give me the directions how to share my presentation.
So within the browser window, when you move your mouse, there will be a mute, a video, a stop camera, and a start screen sharing button.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Just, do you want to do window or entire screen?
Let's do window because it's more reliable.
Okay.
It's loading. Okay, yes, we see it. The Bitcoin mining industry scam and the massive AI tech bubble. We see it.
Okay.
All right.
So now, the thing is, can I put it on full?
Yes.
Okay, that worked actually.
Okay.
Surprisingly. Okay.
Oh, okay. So the Bitcoin mining industry and scam, that's and the massive AI tech bubble. Again, this is my opinion. The market has been hoodwinked by AI and Bitcoin mining salesmen. This has been going on for years. And so what I want to start off with, because AI has been such a large segment now of our GDP, and according to Zero Hedge, I've seen other data that 75% of the growth in the first quarter was due to the AI build out, and also the ancillary economies around it, businesses around it. And so it's been a pretty big deal for the United States and other parts of the world. But I just did this update for my subscribers, my gold members, the great US Bitcoin mining scam on the verge of collapse. And I say that because we're setting up the same thing in 2022 when a few Bitcoin miners went bankrupt. Core Scientific. Investors in the American public, I include the American public, have been sold out, and now the fireworks begin. So I want to start here. Crypto's cryptic takeover. And basically, I'm going to get into this, but Texas Bitcoin mines have already consumed enough electricity in the past 2 years to power 925,000 homes. Now, that is just the beginning. And unfortunately, state regulators don't want you to know about the 60 plus Bitcoin mines guzzling public water and electricity, even though consumers are already paying the price. Now, to understand what happened was in 2021, China decided to ban Bitcoin mining, even though it's still taking place there. And Ed Heers, who is a energy research analyst in Texas, basically calls Bitcoin mining a tapeworm on the grid. So China kind of figured that out. And so what you see here is where the largest Bitcoin mining capacity is. And it's a pretty big deal Even though a lot of people don't care about Bitcoin, they don't own Bitcoin. Bitcoin mining has become a pretty big deal in the United States, especially in Texas. As you could see, 3,847 megawatts of capacity. The second place is Georgia at 703, and then New York at 546. So what I want to focus on is Riot Platforms. Riot is one of the larger Bitcoin minings. They just came out with their first quarter results. Just to give you an understanding how unprofitable Bitcoin mining is, which is similar to how unprofitable AI compute is. So if we look at their quarter one statement, you know it's a scam when they're selling general administrative costs and the depreciation and amortization of 174 million is more than their revenue. And I haven't even included the cost of production of Bitcoin, data center, and engineering. I'm just including their selling general and administrative costs. Now, a big chunk of that G&A is stock-based compensation, which is another scam. But if you look at what I figure, the total cost is about 240 million for Riot to produce their Bitcoin, including the depreciation, which is a major part of why Bitcoin mining and AI won't be profitable. So according to my analysis, the break even for Riot Platforms was $163,000. Well, you see, if we look at another analyst who put together the all-in costs for the Bitcoin miners in the fourth quarter, if you look at Riot, they have 170,000. So I'm not too far off. Mm-hmm. But if you take out the low and you take out the highest, the average is 161,000. And you see, this is bad news because the Bitcoin price is about 80,000. So right now, they're losing 80,000 for every Bitcoin they produce.
So hold on. Were you saying that if you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
Yeah. Is this the price that they're paying per Bitcoin that they produce?
This is the total all-in cost. Now, what people need to realize, a Bitcoin miner, which is a fancy compute system that makes Bitcoins, that figures out how to make Bitcoin similar to a more complex GPU like the Blackwell NVIDIA GPUs, what it basically 90% of that Bitcoin will be produced in the first 2 years of that Bitcoin miner. So it's 90% depreciation by the second year. Okay. So by the third year, the Bitcoin miner is basically useless.
Okay.
Basically. And so what happens is the depreciation is a major cost. And so right now it's about 161,000 when you include the depreciation and the share-based compensation, because these companies aren't profitable, but the executives and the management are taking advantage of the system, and they're paying themselves with shares and sales of shares. So if we look at this chart simply, we've got the NASDAQ in the candlesticks. You don't really have to understand charts, but basically Bitcoin is a NASDAQ high-tech proxy. They go up and down together. It's not a store of value. And so the problem is, again, when this, and as Simon and Dan and some other people reported on your last update about the problem with the Middle East crisis, it hasn't yet hit in the stock market. It hasn't yet hit. When it hits, it's going to bring down the markets. It's going to bring down NASDAQ. It's going to bring down the Bitcoin price. And that's where we're going to start to see the final collapse of the public Bitcoin mining industry. Now, to understand how much of a scam Bitcoin mining is, if you look at the top four companies, Marathon, Riot, CleanSpark, IRA Energy, in the last 2 years, they have paid almost $750 million in stock-based compensation. Now, that's a lot of money because look at their free cash flow. And that free cash flow is where you really make the money. It's negative 3.9 billion. So they're losing money hand over fist. They can't really, it's not profitable. So they're paying themselves $750 million in stock-based compensation, and their market cap is only 31 billion. Now, if we compare it to a real asset, gold, we look at the top 4 gold miners, Newmont, Agnico Eagle, Barrick, and Anglo Gold. They only paid 548 million in stock-based compensation to their management CEOs. Look how much free cash flow they made, 23.2 billion. If you're making 23.2 billion in free cash flow, well, it's probably worth it to give half a billion dollars or $548 million to the CEO and management. And look at the market cap. It's 8 times that of the Bitcoin mining industry. So this is the problem with Bitcoin mining. And now that's the investor. Let's get to the American public and people also, citizens who pay electric bills around the world. How much do we subsidize crypto mining's electricity use? No one knows. Crypto mines have raised electricity rates for households while receiving big discounts and subsidies. Let's look at the right-hand side. In Texas, one of the few states to encourage large-scale crypto mining raised electricity costs for Texans by $1.8 billion or 4.7%. This is Wood Mackenzie now. This isn't some public activity kind of committee. This is a energy resource analyst saying 1.8 billion in extra electricity. And what's interesting, this is how much, and this was based on February 21st, 2025. I think this could have been 2023, 2024 data. The specific crypto operation, it was probably Riot Platforms, was 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, regular industrial is 6.6, average commercial is 8.8, and residential is 14.5. I don't have the most current. The most current residential is 15.4, and industry is now 7.2, and Riot Platforms is 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Now look at New York. This is, because New York is the 3rd largest Bitcoin mining operations in the United States, 3 cents a kilowatt hour. If you're a residential person, you're paying 22.3. If you're a commercial building, leasing out a store, you're paying 18 cents, and industry's paying 7. Now, all those rates have gone up in the last year. So I want to look at Riot. This comes right out of their first quarter 2026 report. Look at how much electricity they're using. They used 3 billion kilowatt hours in 2023. It's now double to 6 billion. Let's call it 6,140 gigawatt hours. That is enough to power 425,000 to 465,000 homes. Just Riot. And most of their mines are in Texas, about 95%. So you can cut some of that off, but you could see how much power. And this is just one company. So I did this. This is Google's Gemini's large language model, not AI. People need to understand these are large language models. They're not artificial intelligence. We haven't got to artificial intelligence yet. Anyhow, in 2025, Bitcoin miners in Texas are estimated to have consumed 24.4 terawatt hours of electricity. That is enough to power about 1.66 million homes. Now, from what I read, there's about 12.5 million homes in Texas. That's a pretty substantial amount of power. And the whole thing was that Bitcoin mining was going to use up all the wasted power, the wasted natural gas that we flare, or the solar and wind that's not being used. That's what they were going to use. So I asked Grok, what percentage of electricity does Bitcoin mining use in Texas, renewable or hooking up to the grid? Nearly 100% of the electricity used by Bitcoin mining industry comes directly from hooking up to the grid. So it's been a lie. They're not really using, they're not using a lot of renewables. They are using the renewables that are attached to the grid, but it's not that the idea they're they're fluctuating their power consumption. They do that only throughout the year when it's too hot or too cold, but they're not using power. They're using power 24/7. They're not using it when there's more power. No, they're using it 24/7. So basically, the Bitcoin miners are grid dominance. Basically, it's mostly attached to the grid. And dedicated renewables are negligible. And I did a report, Marathon, right down here. They bought a 100 megawatt wind farm. And unfortunately, it's an old wind farm, and its power production has gone down about 90%. So unfortunately, Bitcoin mining hasn't really used wasted power from either natural gas or renewables. So this is what Riot produced, the world's largest Bitcoin mining site, and it's called the Corsicana facility. It's in Texas, and it was supposed to be 1 gigawatt. That's how big it was supposed to be. And this is the beginning stage of it right here. Then what happened in the third quarter, 2024, they decided they're not going to expand it to 1 gigawatt. This is 400 megawatts right there. There was supposed to be another 600 added. So the reason why they decided to do that was because they can no longer hide the rapid depreciation and impact and continued share dilution to expand and may cause investors to sell. So what happened is they realized Bitcoin mining isn't profitable. The entire industry realizes Bitcoin mining isn't profitable. So what did they do? They've decided they're going to transition out of Bitcoin mining, and they're going to go to IT data centers, AI, HPC. Now, if you look at this chart, this is a repurposing of the Corsicana facility. This is a rendering. Look how big these buildings are. They're like 3 stories. Now, if you look at building 1 on the left in the small diagram and building 4, that's the original area I showed you. That's this right here. That's this area right here. What they need to do is buy land next to them to build these other building 2 and building 3. And this is only going to be 756 megawatts. This goes to show you just how big the repurposing of AI data centers are, the massive cooling that it's going to take to run these things. And the reason why it's going to take such a big building has to do with this chart. Estimated hourly energy consumption for different types of data center racks. Now, the standard data centers used about 7 kilowatt hours. That's what they did. Now, the cloud HPC is about triple. It's 30. Now, NVIDIA is putting out the new AI Blackwell chips. They supposedly sold 6 million last year. But from what I heard from several analysts that I listened to, about half of those are still sitting in warehouses because these massive data centers aren't built yet. And they're still manufacturing more Blackwell chips. And they're coming out with the new Vera Rubin chips at the end of this year. But then they're going to come up with the Vera Rubin Ultra. And if you look at the AI Blackwell, it's 130 kilowatt hours a rack. And the new AI Vera Rubin chips that are coming out Ultra in 2027, they're 600 kilowatt hours.
Dan has a question.
Sure.
That's not so much a question, Steve, just kind of accentuate what you're talking about. Give you an example. 2 weeks ago, Intel came out with their earnings report, and they reported that 1/3 of their chip sales were sales of faulty chips. They're selling it to AI data centers, meaning these are CPUs that won't even run. And they're selling it to AI data centers. They're putting the chips in storage. And the reason why is because the shortage of gas turbines is so severe, you're not going to see power plants for the AI data centers for 7 to 10 years. So think about it. 1/3 of Intel's sales are faulty chips that are because they know they're never going to get used. Think about that.
Yeah, and so you see, this is the problem. This is the problem.
And
Unfortunately,
admitting it, Steve. They're actually admitting it. That's the scary part about it. They're not even hiding it.
yeah, you see, this is the problem with the what's happening now with the Iran-Iraq Israeli war. We really don't know what's going on. There's a lot of misinformation. It's the same thing with Bitcoin mining. It's the same thing with AI, and unfortunately, I think we're heading for a major popping of this bubble, which is going to impact the markets. But I agree. Now, this is the second part. Why is AI a bubble? Well, I didn't have the time to put together that information that I did for the Bitcoin miners. And that report that I did for my subscribers was 3 times that information. There's a lot more information, but there are 3 people who I listen to. Is Ed Zitron, and he dispels the myth of the AI revolution. And he's pretty well known because even The Guardian did an interview of him about what he talks about is the AI bubble. And he also calls it a scam. And it's not just him. We're starting to see some pretty big names. The IBM CEO says there's no way for gigawatt data centers to turn a profit. The CEO of one-time tech giant IBM says that he doubts that data center mega projects will be profitable. And so at the bottom, this is where it's really interesting because a lot of debt has been used to fund these data center build-outs. He says it's in my view that there's no way you're going to get a return on that because 8 trillion of capex, and that's based on 100 gigawatts of AI build-out, means you need roughly 800 billion of profit just to pay the interest.
Wow.
Not to pay down the capital expenditures of the 8 trillion, all the cost to run it. So this is a major problem moving forward. Also, Cory Doctorow, he's an excellent analyst about what's happening not only in AI, the economics of AI won't pencil out. He also talks about the enshittification of technology, especially the tech platforms of Twitter, of Google, of Meta, Microsoft. They're no longer providing the real benefit to the user or the businesses. And so it's unfortunately, it's not just AI. It happens to be high technology is basically a tapeworm. And users and we're starting to see, they did a poll, 45% of Gen Z workers were they're trying to hamper the use of AI in the workforce. And so we're starting to see people are already revolting against technology, not because it doesn't work, not because it helps, because it doesn't work. And then there's Cal Newport, Professor Cal Newport. Don't worry about the AI apocalypse. This is what everybody's worried about. AI is going to destroy jobs. It's going to take over the world. And actually, if you listen to some of these individuals, they have the data. It's actually more of a bubble and a scam than it is of something that's going to change the world. Because one of the things is he talks about the productivity paradox. AI isn't lightening workloads. It's making them more intense. And so basically, this is what I wanted to share. There's a lot more information here, but what I wanted to do is at least give you the precursor, which was Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining wasn't profitable, and now a lot of the companies are trying to hoodwink investors and the market by transitioning to AI data centers. And that won't be because the depreciation of these GPUs are just as bad as the Bitcoin miners. So that's basically my presentation.
All right. Thank you, Steve. That was very informative and educational. I just had
Okay.
I had a few comments. Well, one in terms of the enshittification, I learned, well, recently there's been a mass exodus from Microsoft to Linux exactly because of that.
Yeah.
And also, one of the relevant points of information is that in terms of the adoption of a new technology, it mostly happens after the market crash of the bubble. And we're in the bubble now. And so a lot of this AI technologies have been created, as it were. And so there's a lot of ones that are like can run locally on your computer, and that's one of the reasons why it probably will never be profitable for these mega companies, because they've made all of this build out for making these models. But once they've made the models, they can just run on your computer at home. Why would you pay? All right, Simon, you got on mute, Simon.
How about that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Steve, great stuff. I agree. Now, I've been following the data center issue. I see a combination of AI with the incoming data centers and the data fusion centers, changes in the law, and some of the semiconductor technology that's been developed to manage it all as one system. And none of it makes sense economically. And for you've done an analysis there that shows it from a point of view of a company annual report, right? So that's a kick to the testicles for the idea that this is profitable, right? So you've got some good data there. I've always come to the conclusion that the whole AI thing is strategic. It's not economic. I've yet to hear someone actually make the case to me about why we should restructure society at such a fundamental level. It's going to cost a fortune. It's going to increase technology. It's going to complexity, etc., etc., etc. Why? What fundamental step forward does it give us? Like you could make the case that the electric motor, the internal combustion engine, changes society going forward, but I've yet to actually sort of see a case for why we would take on AI like this, where we're restructuring our law, our governance, our insurance. Why? And so to me, this is strategic, and this is from the same mentality, from the same monkeys that are actually printing money. Why are they doing that? Why do they keep going? They know the system is cooked and it's all about to turn over. So anyway, just what am I saying? Steve, I agree with you. I've come at this from a different direction, though.
Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, no, and I understand. We all have different opinions and different views. That's what makes the peak oil chat so interesting. Some people, you see, I talk about Bitcoin, and so some people, if they're a peak oil person, they'll just turn off the presentation, but they don't realize how important Bitcoin mining has become in energy consumption, which was a precursor to the AI build out. Again, 75% of the growth in the US GDP in the first quarter was AI. So it's important to understand that. And I think even though it's not profitable, Bitcoin mining and AI is not profitable, it isn't sustainable. That's why you had the .com crash. You still had the internet, but you had a lot of the companies went under. We will still have large language models because they still provide some interesting information. The problem is it's not profitable. That's the reason why Microsoft doesn't even report its AI revenue. Well, most of the companies stop reporting their AI revenue. Mm-hmm. So that's a major red flag.
I wanted to also bring back a little bit of the Middle East component in terms of I read this thing about the sovereign wealth funds of the Middle East because they produce a large amount of oil, and so in order to prevent making their money worth too much, they invest in other places. And so a lot of these data centers are actually funded by the Middle East and these Saudi oil barons and things like that. But this Hormuz crisis is basically has made them lose faith in America, and they're also not getting those oil revenues. And so this could also, the Hormuz situation can also be related to the collapse of this AI. I don't know if you are familiar with that.
No. I've heard that analysis, and I agree. There's two things going on. One, you have this bubble. And at the same time, if you want to try to build it out, you need the funds and the materials from China to move through the Strait of Hormuz. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. This Middle East crisis may actually speed up the collapse of the AI bubble. And I think it would speed it up much quicker, what's happening, especially if it continues.
So Charlie has a question in the chat about the depreciation, and if you could explain that more. And then Ivor has something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, I guess Ivor, go ahead first.
Well, I heard that the helium, you can't get helium out of the Gulf, and that's a big problem because you have to use helium in order to make the chips out of ultra pure quartz, right? So I've heard that has slowed down chip production, and that's going to be a big problem. I don't know.
Well, it is true that Qatar, when they produce LNG, they produce about 33% of the world's helium, and a lot of that goes to a good percentage of that goes to Asia to help manufacture those chips. However, Asia, like everybody, has had a significant amount of helium in inventory. So they're still running through that. Now, this is the reason why we're not seeing the price of oil hit $200 either, like it did when we had the oil crisis in 1973, because we didn't have a strategic oil reserve in 1973. That's the reason why we started a strategic oil reserve. So it's due to the U.S., China, and the world's global petroleum and oil inventories have been buffering the price of oil. And then we get these Axios articles that came out yesterday that pushed the price of oil down $10, and nothing changed. And so it's kind of kabuki theater in the mainstream media.
Dan?
Yeah, I've got an SMC chip fab in my backyard. I do maintenance for. What they use the helium for, it has to be an inert gas, and it has to have a low molecular weight for cooling, but they use it for making the silicon metal, actually exposing the disc to the masking. That has to be in an inert atmosphere. So all that's the reason why they have to have helium. There isn't really any replacement. You could use argon or krypton or some other gas to replace it in chip fab. But as far as what you're talking about, Steve, it is impacting things. There's a huge memory chip shortage right now, and it's centered around there's not enough helium in the Far East for doing chip fab right now as we speak. For memory chip. Sorry.
I know Charles had a question. Did he ever come back?
Yeah, so I will just
Here I am.
go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to understand. I've gotten all kinds of answers, but I wanted to know what's degrading, because my computer or my phone, the chips in those don't, or my car, they don't degrade. What do you mean the depreciation? And I've got various answers saying it's just that they want to replace them with newer chips, and then Dan says they burn out. So I'm very confused.
Well, Charlie, I don't know about you, but after about 5-6 years, cell phones start burning up. They do, for various reasons. They just don't last that long because there's a lot of very leveraged technology that's put in there that gets warm. And so the issue is most servers, banking servers, most servers will last 5-6 years. And you might extend them on year or two with maintenance. But then there's newer ones that come out. Now, the Bitcoin miners, according to analysis done, that over 3 years, the Bitcoin mining, the depreciation is 75% first year, 90% second year, and basically by the third year, it's 100%
Because
depreciation.
they're being used all the time?
Yes, they're being used, and then there
Ah.
are new, more efficient models that come out. And so
Okay.
that's the obsolescence. But there's
Okay,
so
I get
much, there's so much heat going through these Bitcoin miners that they're also failing at a high rate as they get older. And
Got
so it's no different than a GPU, which they're much more expensive. The Blackwell, the Vera Rubin GPUs that NVIDIA puts out.
Okay. Andre, my camera doesn't work. Just if I'm coming on next, the camera doesn't work.
Okay. Well, don't worry about
I
the
know
camera. We got
movie.
your slides at least.
Yeah.
Charlie, have faith. Keep going.
Yeah. All right. So I think we still have another question from Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I just wanted to accentuate what Steve was saying. I tried to tell Charlie, most of the NVIDIA chips, about 80% of them burn out in the data centers within 3 years. 80% of them. And I don't know if it's just quality or the amount of heat. Now, Charlie, you were talking about like your cell phone and stuff like that. In the cell phones, we use ARM processors. That's different from Intel and AMD. And we're actually going more toward ARM and RISC-V because those are chips that use less energy. For example, there's no fan and heat sink on your phone, but yet in our data centers with the Intel AMD chips, tons of fans, lots and lots of cooling, and it has to do with its efficiency of chips. But yeah, what Steve is talking about, these chips, because of the heat, they just don't last for very long. They burn out quickly.
Thank you.
And also, I like to add what Dan said. You see, the Bitcoin miners, the older ones a couple of years ago, they were fan cooled. Now Riot, they're liquid immersion. Now the Blackwell and then the Vera Rubin chips, the cooling, the engineering for the cooling for those things is like 3 or 4 times the chips that came before it. So it's an exponentially increasing, and I showed you that chart of the 600 megawatts or kilowatt hours that one of the Vera Rubin Ultra GPU racks are going to use. They need to be cooled down. And so that's why the buildings are so much bigger than a regular data center.
Peter?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. So I wanted to clarify because I got the sense that when Charlie is referring to depreciation and when Steve is referring to depreciation, we're talking about two things. It seems that Charlie's talking about degradation and Steve is talking about financial depreciation on a balance sheet. Is that right?
Yeah.
I
And
meant
actually,
typically.
Peter, they're about the same. If we look at gold mining, I look at the gold mining industry and I analyze the gold mining industry. When you look at the gold mining industry, you look at their depreciation. Let's say it's 250 million that quarter. Their capital expenditures are usually somewhere around 250 million. They're offsetting what they're depleting and their depreciation of their capital, which is their machines, et cetera. So it's similar to Bitcoin mining. It is a financial depreciation, but it's also a physical degradation. It's so basically depreciation is a financial way to measure this degradation, whether it's a refrigerator, whether it's a car, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's a Bitcoin mining or a data center. So I hope that explained it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I just fundamentally I saw a discrepancy between how those, how that concept was being understood
Right.
within the group. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I just wanted to add a little bit of clarification in terms of why it is that in these data centers they seem to break down so quickly, and that's because they're running them at full tilt or even overclocking them because they're trying to squeeze as much juice from that first year, like Steve was saying. And
Yes.
that's when you run them that hot, that's why it causes them to break down, because you're either going at spec or beyond spec. If you have a personal GPU that you bought, then and you want it to last for several years, then you actually have to run it at about 80% capacity, 80% of its rated wattage, so that it doesn't overheat and degrade, and you'll have it for years. But then but yeah, Steve's totally right in terms of things getting more efficient and all that stuff. Go ahead, Dan, and then hopefully we can get Charlie's presentation after. Okay.
Yeah, with the issues is it's not planned obsolescence. It's that they shrunk the chips down. Like the latest technology that Intel has right now is called 18A, or 18 angstrom. An angstrom is the width of an atom. So that means that the lines on the board itself are only 18 atoms wide. And when you shrink it down that far, whenever you throw in thermal heat, that'll physically destroy the chip itself. So that's why the temperatures and these really tiny little chips, right, basically kind of collide, the engineering collide. As another aspect to it too, this angstrom, 18 angstrom is really the end to the ultraviolet lithographic technology. So right now, Intel, probably another 2 years, they're not going to have another CPU, because you can't use Moore's law to shrink it down. The next frontier is going to be an X-rays. We'll see how all that plays out. But basically, shrinking it down and the thermal is what physically destroys the chip. It's not planned obsolescence. It's just the physics of the actual design of the chip itself.
Mm-hmm. All right, Charlie. So I am ready for your presentation now.
I don't know. My camera isn't working, but I guess if you have my presentation, I'll just talk. Everybody hear me?
Yeah. Can you see the first slide up on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I gave this at the Canadian Club of Rome, the good group. And so, look, you can't tell when I need to click.
Oh, just tell me next slide.
It's a lot of slides, so we're going to go. Okay, energy, food, and agriculture. And I'm going to talk a lot about gradients next. Now, this is humanity's critical resource, but it must be gained efficiently next. Isn't there any way I can signal you? I guess there isn't. Shit.
Not really. Sorry.
First, humans must eat always. Next.
Yeah, I'll try to go forward as soon as you finish saying it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here's a couple of our ancestors on a date, perhaps reconstructed from their footprints that they found in Africa. And humans go forward. Humans go forward. Started harassing energy as food, obviously. Fire enormously expanded food resources for humans, because plant cells have cell walls that break down, that are hard for our guts to break down. So if we cook our food, that increase the amount of food available to humans by a factor of 10 or more through cooking technology. Now, we don't think of spears and knives and axes as energy devices, but they're force concentrating devices that allow us to do a lot more work. For example, if you try to penetrate the skin of a mammoth with your fist, it's really tough. But if you put all that same energy into a point, you can do it, because you've greatly increased the concentration of energy. So in general, the technology of humans enabled an enormous expansion of our ability to increase resources and gave us more human energy surplus with environmental impacts such as megafaunal extinctions and so forth. Next. In this environment, energy return on investment is very important. If you've seen the wonderful movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy, these folks, the Kum, I studied them in some detail in graduate school, and it was thought that, as you see on the caption here, although meat was a prized item, plant foods provided the most substance, and they thought the ERY, they didn't use that term, but their energy return on their energy used to get mongongo nuts was 10 to 1. Next. And they'd go from water hole to water hole and gather all the nuts. And then when they had to go when they gathered them up in one day's hike, they had to go 2, and then it became unprofitable to continue a third day, and they'd move to another water hole. It's a marvelous story that's been developed by Richard Lee a long time ago. Next. I probably got the idea of EROI from this study. My last undergraduate student, Matt Cloud, said, I think that the EROI for hunting is much better than they say. And we did a paper on that and did it in some detail. And you get one or two older guys that are good trackers, and 1 or 2 younger fellas that were fast, and you walk around till they found an antelope, a kudu or whatever, and they chase it. And this is called persistence hunting. And this is almost certainly how humans evolved into such good runners, and probably was very important for our hunter-gatherer ancestors. And they chase the antelope, and the antelope, of course, could outrun the human, and they go and hide under a bush, and they do this in the middle of the day, and the antelope, which are parallel to the sun, would heat up, and the humans, which were vertical to the sun and maybe were bald and could dissipate heat, maybe that's where baldness comes from, they were able to keep going, and they kept going. Kept tracking the antelope until about the 5th time the antelope couldn't run anymore, and the 2 young fast fellas could run up and spear the antelope, and then they get a terrific EROI according to our analysis. And now even the anthropologists are accepting our results, which is pretty nice. Next.
Nice.
I can send the paper, anybody care about it. So there you go. It was thought before that hunting wasn't important, but we proved that it is, we think. Next. And now humans spread out from East Africa to all the world. So the people in West Africa or South Africa are just as evolved away from the original human precursors, of which there may have been as many as 8 species. And, where they talk about us being mixed with Neanderthals, but there were probably all kinds of interesting mixtures. Although the human genome is very, very, very much the same all around the world. Next. And so we came up to next. And here's some of, you went too many. Okay, and we lost our pigments because we covered our bodies with skins, and we need to get sunshine, vitamin D, or else we get rickets. So there was very strong selection against melanin in our skins, which we almost certainly initially had. So here we are, us white guys. Next. Now, 10,000 years ago, we developed a new approach to food agriculture. And you got to realize that when we started to do agriculture, almost all of the increased EROI or energy return to our effort, almost all of it went into an expansion of the number of humans, not in per capita energetic welfare. So anthropologists like Larry Angel have shown that as we became agriculture, we became less robust, less well fed as we increasingly undertook agriculture. Now,
I would just add that it's sedentary agriculture that kind of developed 10,000 years ago, whereas like the slash and burn kind of stuff, we've had that for tens of thousands of years.
well, I'm not sure, because go to the next slide.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe so. So for a long time, the basic problem with agriculture is you use up the nutrients. And so slash and burn, go through a bunch of these slides quickly. I spent a lot of time in the tropics studying this stuff.
Mhm.
Although I didn't take these particularly, I took some of them. And this is a dibble stick, and you cut and dry, and it takes a great deal. Whoa! It takes a great deal of, go back one, it takes a great deal of skill to undertake shifting cultivation, but you can get decent yields from the crops, from the fields, because you've just added a new bunch of fertilizer. Okay, next, and you can see this picture in Venezuela, a new field here, maybe a field a year old. Here's some old fields that are growing, and the forestry covers the nutrients in 20 or 30 years, and then you do it again. And they were doing this in Finland, still are, and they were doing it in South Carolina when my mother grew up there. In Costa Rica, where I spent a lot of time, you see the poorer people would do it on hillsides, and richer people would have permanent agriculture on the flatter land. Next. Then came settled agriculture, as you say, in Tigris, Euphrates, all kinds of places around the world simultaneously. Kind of interesting how in Asia and in Americas and so forth, settled agriculture occurred all at the same time. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just getting a call. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
Next.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's what you meant. Okay, right.
Okay, next.
Yep. Okay.
So this is genetically engineered before we did any of our own genetic engineering. This was the teosinte, however you pronounce it, the original precursor of corn. And this is the corn that were genetically engineered by 5,000 years of our ancestors into today's maize. So humans did a whole lot of technological changes during this time. Next.
Nutrient management.
And part of it was nutrient management, and in Asia, especially the rice nutrient management is a marvelous technology. Next. Okay, here are the two people that really helped me understand. Whoa, Jesus.
Okay.
Here are the two people that helped me understand agriculture, I thought, quite well. Howard Odom, my advisor, doctoral advisor, and David Pimentel, my colleague back at Cornell, were really helped us understand for the first time, especially the energy intensity of modern agriculture. Next, and I'm going to go that way. Next. So Odom did a lot of these flow diagrams. Andre, you just go two at a time.
Oh, it's because there's a delay. When I go forward, there's a few seconds delay. Okay.
Well, all right. So increasingly, we find what are called city services that are generated from petroleum, and they're all the machinery and the chemicals that we use and all this sort of stuff. So that the energy we put in as oil now is much more than the energy the farmer puts in his own physical self. And we'll look at the energy return. So Odom wrote about this in 1973, he made a big deal, and he had these marvelous pictures of a range cow and a beef, what he called a beef machine, with a lot more fossil fuel being put into the process. Next. The main consequence of increased yields was, as I said, not increased nutrition, but greater human density. So we went, it's going backwards but you had 25,000 hectares per person, what's that, 1,000,000 years ago, and now this was 1970 or so, 2.5 hectares per person, probably 1.5 now. And so we have much greater densities, especially in Europe, East Asia, South Asia, as we know. So this was only made possible by the intensification of agriculture. Next. People think it's a bad thing that we use all this energy on our farmland, but if we didn't use it, we'd need 3 times more farmland, and that would probably be reflected as in less natural areas left. It's a two-edged sword, and agriculture gets a bad rap, but it's a little more complicated than that. So let's look at energy return on energy investment. We call it edible energy return on energy investment. Now, up until the beginning of the coal age, 1750 or whatever, almost all of the energy that ran human society, in this case, England, we had good data from England, came from organic fuels, mostly food for us, fodder for our animals, and wood fuel. This is from Kerry King, a really nice study. And it shows that about half to 2/3 of all of human activity was just to get the energy to allow the rest of human activity. And although we had kings and banquets and great art and so forth, not very many people were doing that kind of thing. Most people were getting the energy to run the rest of society. Now, about 1700, coal came in, displaced wood initially, and then became its own thing. And it went from getting energy went from, say, 50% of all economic activity, i.e. an ERI of 2 to 1, if you think about it, down to an EROI of maybe 5 to 1 with coal, and then with oil and gas down to an EROI of 10 to 1 or so that only even 20 to 1, so that only 5 or 10% of all economic activity was necessary to get the energy to do everything else we do. And now we're probably beginning to go back the other direction, but that's the long-term record. Okay, next. So this is, of course, look, I'm born in 1943, so the use of energy has increased by about a factor of 8 in my life with a very high EROI. And even now, when I started studying these things in 1970, 80% of our energy came from fossil fuels, and now it's 82%. Next. And our use of oil and the GDP, you can look at various graphs that show something like this. You're all familiar with it, I'm sure. Basically, how do we make wealth? We make wealth by increasing our use of oil. Next. Or energy more generally. Oil and gas. So, this is how we generate wealth. We take nature and we use energy, represented by these strong looking guys with Volkswagen and various industries on their patches, and we turn this nature in, i.e. raw materials, into money. And that's basically what we do. Next. Is this a result of maximum power or something else? That's a different discussion. but every politician or dictator runs on more. Okay, next. So the farm production per hour of labor, you see, has gone up enormously, and the crop production per hectare has increased. All of this is due to using more and more fossil fuel. Next. So the yield per hectare has increased, and the yield per man hour has, what? I don't know what the hell this is. That's backwards. But the yield per man hour and the yield per hectare have both increased enormously. I don't know why one of those is going down. I'd have to think about that.
The
Next.
labor required declined.
Oh, labor required to produce 100 bushels. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
The labor required. I mean, look at that. That's incredible. The labor required to make 100 bushels has gone from 350 man hours down to 1 or 2. So it's made, that's where labor productivity comes from, is our increased use of fuel. Next. This was originally developed by Howard Odom, and here's the yield in terms of, in this case, kilocalories per square meter per year. And food gathering culture was very low per hectare, and that, as was primitive, so-called primitive agriculture. But if you have subsidized grain agriculture, you can enormously increase your yield. Next. So just to give you an idea, this is a 33 horsepower harvester.
Wow.
And there's 5 people to run it, and then you need stable boys, and you need to grow the fuel for the horses and so forth. All right, next. And this is a 200 horsepower, 7 times more potent, run by 1 person and some oil. Just to show you what a difference oil has made in our food production and in our productivity per farmer. Next, and that's a small harvester, by the way.
Yeah.
And we studied this, and other people have too as well, as the edible energy return on fossil energy input. And the darker figures was the study I was undertaking with others, Steve Bellow and others. I got to get Abby Hamilton was very important here. And the yield, let me think about this. The energy return on investment used to be better because you weren't using much oil back in 1910. But now the energy return on investment, and this was a pretty good study, I think, that we did, was increasing a little bit, mostly, and we examined this in great detail because we were raising more and more corn, 95% of which is used for cars or feeding to stock. It's kind of amazing. We don't even eat most of the corn we raise. And I drove across the middle of the United States in April about 10 years ago, and it was really, really depressing because from the border of Nebraska, I went from Montana to North Carolina, and it was just, you go horizon to horizon, just bare fields where they were getting ready to plant maize or soy. And one end of town had petroleum facilities for farm supplies. The other end of town had distilleries to make alcohol. We are required by law to put 10% alcohol into our gasoline, and it takes just about 1 calorie of fossil fuel to make 1 calorie of alcohol to put in your car, and which were required in the U.S. to do by law. Okay, next.
Okay.
But growing grains, which is mostly corn, wheat, and rice, is the best way to get energy out of your fossil input. And so, well, this is the same data. Next. About 2 to 1 for all agriculture. And let's forget that. There's a correction for animal production, but never mind. And so here's a rough idea of the energy return on investment. And beef, pork, protein is more. And if you want to know why, it takes more energy to fix nitrogen than it takes to fix carbon. You want to think about that? I think that's kind of interesting. So here's, I don't know if this is from one of my papers. I don't think so. But anyway, I have a better graph of that coming up next. But the best way to get energy to eat is to eat grains. But there are problems with agriculture, namely that you don't have a deep root system to recycle the nutrients. So you put in corn, you lose with erosion in the winter, and corn is a particularly erosive crop, and you lose with the harvest. Next. And you can see this in the ancient city of Ephesus, mentioned in the Bible and so forth, this is 700 BC, and as time went on, Ephesus now finds itself 2 or 3 miles away from the Aegean Sea when it used to be a seaport. So this is all sediment that came in from farming the watershed of the Cayster River. Next. Now, human population wasn't just upward. Egypt, for example, has long records, as does China. And so the number of people has increased a great deal only recently, last 100 years or so. And here's Egypt, China, and Ireland showing a very large die-off due to Black Death, plagues, Turkish conquest, whatever. And that's how much of amazing how much humans increased when they could. Next. Here's the ancient city of Ur, where we get the word urban, which is in the Mesopotamian Tigris-Euphrates area. There's a big juggernaut there. And an enormous city there that we didn't even know was there recently because it was covered with sand. This has all been excavated. So a lot of humanity has lived before us. Next. And this was agriculture that allowed this concentration of wealth. Now, as I said, the loss of nutrients with continuous agriculture is a big problem. What the English did was they had to dig up the bones of the dead soldiers and horses at Waterloo and grind them up and put them on their lands because they didn't have enough manure. And so for a long time, we were getting in a really tough situation, as Malthus understood. Next. But then Alexander von Humboldt, and there's a marvelous book on him by somebody, Wolf, he traveled to South America and found that there was this stinky stuff that everybody was really going to great lengths to get, called guano. And that, of course, is the birds concentrated the nitrogen for us. And then next, as everybody here knows, next.
And the phosphorus.
Well, phosphorus too, yes, in the fish bones. These came along. Fritz Haber unsung hero and sometimes villain of generating ammonia from the air by taking a tube and compressing it while he heated it with a right catalyst, and he'd get ammonia, and then he ran around his campus, I don't think naked, shouting Eureka. And this guy Bosch came along and industrialized it. And if you read Guns of August by Barbara Tuchman, marvelous book, the Germans started World War I with only 6 months of gunpowder made from guano. And incidentally, Confederate women were asked to save their urine to make gunpowder. And Bosch built enough gunpowder for 4 more miserable years of World War I. But without the Haber-Bosch process, we wouldn't have had ammonium nitrate, which is the basis of essentially all gunpowder now.
And fertilizer.
And there's more energy in a gram of sugar, but the ammonia and the nitrate are the reduced and the oxidized components are right next to each other and combine very quickly. So fertilizer makes great gunpowder, as people in Kansas City know. Next. And so this is nitrogen fertilizer used per hectare. And it's just enormously increased the productivity of global agriculture. Next. Here's another cute graph that was done by University of Wisconsin. I can't remember his name, but a really cool guy. And just looking at this is the energy return on energy invested. I think he used the term before I did, and or the calorie subsidy for 1 gram of food. But so the average calorie on your plate now takes 10 calories of oil to grow it, process it, ship it, and cook it. Obviously, beef and fish are more energy intensive, although range-fed beef is not too bad. Feedlot beef is very high and so forth. So what you eat can impact a great deal how much energy is used to feed you. Next. Okay. Now, if you're still with me, I spent a lot of time thinking about gradients in ecology. That was for a long time my perspective. And so let me just give you a summary of how to think about that and what I found out. It was really quite amazing. Next, for me. Now, Ricardo came up with the best first principle. People use high quality, low cost resources before they use low quality, high cost resources, of course. Mm-hmm. Next, that's the best first principle. Right. And I was influenced, my colleague back at Cornell, Robert Whitaker, had looked at the distribution of plants in the Smoky Mountains of different species as a function of the dryness of the soil and the temperature, which was a function of elevation. And he found that each species pretty much sorted itself along these 2 gradients. And I found this is really, really an important idea. And next, I have developed a paper that looks at this from an energy cost and energy gain perception. And we call it, this is the paper, Distribution and Abundance of Organisms as a Consequence of Energy Balances Along Multiple Environmental Gradients. So this is geographical space on the left, what you see when you look out a car or an airplane window. This is gradient space that the species does especially well at the center of its gradient space. Every species, in fact, it's what species are all about, is optimizing their life history for the center of particular gradient space, which is different essentially for every species. And there's an isopleth of reproduction further out. They don't make a big enough energy profit unless they're inside this to reproduce, and they don't even they can't even survive if they're too far away from the center of gradient space. Next. And here's a one, please, Andrew.
Okay, sorry.
So you have the energy gain. This could be a gradient of temperature or water velocity, all kinds of things I've looked at. But let's say temperature, and here's your energy gain, your assimilation, and here's your cost, and which goes up with temperature for a cold-blooded critter. And the net is a maximum at the center of your gradient space. That's why every species has different enzymes that work at different temperatures that allow them to have an optimal place for all kinds of gradients, such as temperature, but many other things. Next. And so the shaded areas where you can make a good energy profit. This is over geographical range. And then, but you have to be near the center of gradient space to reproduce, and fairly near the center in order to survive. So this is developed in great detail. Anybody interested, I'll send you the paper. Next. So we looked at gradient space in some detail in the tropics and in also Argentina, other places. Next. Costa Rica especially. Next. So here's where plants grow. They don't grow just anywhere. They only grow where there's favorable conditions and good soil and the right temperatures. And there's not a great deal of the tropics where plants grow especially well, which is really,
at least not crops. I think
crops.
We have to distinguish.
I'm sorry, where crops grow especially well, and that was really confusing me for a while because I was living in Costa Rica and trying to figure out why the maize yield was so low. It was only 1/8 of Iowa. And that didn't make sense because they had lots of technology and lots of fertilizers and stuff. Okay, next. And I came across this done by Chang in 1981, and I found other stuff that supports it. It's U-shaped with, here's the equator in the middle and 55 north and 45 south. And these are different countries, and this is maize yield as a function of latitude, and it's very latitude dependent. And I wondered about this and wondered, and finally Margaret Smith explained it to me. In the tropics, and if you've lived in the tropics, you have about 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night. And so it's always 1-to-1, day to night. Now at night, a plant is like an animal. It needs to use energy from its reserves to survive. And in the US or Canada, during the growing season, you've got 16 hours of daylight and 8 hours of night. And that 2-to-1 relation of daylight to night allows essentially a 10 times greater profit going into yield. Now, I looked that up this morning. It's still more or less true. So I think that's really fascinating that people don't understand the importance of energy cost and gains as it applies all over the place, all over the world and within any given country, and how that affects agriculture. So we get much more corn yield, as I'll show, in the center of corn's gradient space. Here we go. In Iowa, this is Lake Michigan here to orient you. You get higher yield in Iowa and eastern Nebraska than you get in Texas or Pennsylvania or other places. See the dark areas are where you get the highest corn yield per hectare or the highest EROI. I'm sorry, it's EROI, we were doing that. Only in the dark areas, this is Murphy, Hall, and Powers, only in the dark areas do you get enough profit from growing corn so that you can use more, you can get a little more energy out in the alcohol than you put in the fertilizers and all the diesel used and the energy to distill the grain. So they put the grain distilleries in the very best counties that pushes your bacon and cornflakes production out to the periphery, so it increases the energy cost of your cornflakes and bacon. But you don't have to have a better than 1-for-1 yield to make your cornflakes. That's another question. Next, we're willing to trade oil for food. Now, I wrote a couple of books on the tropics, so I looked at in the tropics in great detail. Next, this is a marvelous book, Making World Development Work. I get it for $100 from University Press of Colorado. This blue one. That's more pounds a book than you'll get per dollar anywhere else. Next, there's good paper, really good papers in it. Here is Costa Rica with sugarcane on the top, coffee on the slope, some other row crops. All the land that's not in the steep mountains is used. Every square meter practically is used to grow something. Very, very intensive agriculture. Next. But they say, and I've analyzed it in great detail, and we're not going to worry about it here, but looked at the energy cost of all our gains, of all of our crops here. Next. Everywhere you go in Costa Rica, you see these little areas that are selling petroleum byproducts from chemical energies and their pesticides and their fertilizers and their all kinds of things, insecticides that are made out of petroleum. Next. I was really blown away by how energy intensive, this is Costa Rica, the agriculture was. But nevertheless, even given all the fossil fuels used, geography was in a certain sense dominant. Next. So next. So this is a map of the country of Costa Rica. And the dark spots are where you get really good coffee yields. Now, coffee will grow anywhere in Costa Rica, but you can make a profit only in certain mountainous regions. So I plotted that in gradient space. The dotted line is what you find in Costa Rica. And so coffee grows better than 1.5 tons per hectare of yield in the black area, only where the global temperature, the annual temperature is about 22, 23. And then it grows better than 1 ton per hectare in the speckled area, and less than that. You can't make a profit growing coffee as you get towards the outside of gradient space. So there's coffee. Coffee has its own requirements, sort of in the middle of the area available in Costa Rica. Next. Next. And there's pineapple, has its different requirements, you see. Next. And bananas, a different requirement, et cetera, et cetera. So every crop has its own very special requirements that you can, that none of this is examined by agricultural entities. and we don't even know in all of the agricultural experiment stations, and I spent an enormous amount of time looking through all this stuff. They never grow a control. They never grow test plots with no fertilizer. All they ask is how much fertilizer gives us the best yield. And so trying to figure out what the natural conditions could yield is almost impossible from the agricultural experimental stations. I got really frustrated. Next. So we don't know what the hell we're doing with agriculture. And it's really important. Look at this. This is the hectares, and this is rice, I think. And you see, this is every year data. I just did this enormous data analysis. And for about 5 years here, they planted less hectares in rice for whatever reason. I don't know what reason. And during that period, if you look at the bottom graph, their yield per hectare almost doubled because they kept only the best areas in production, which was nearer the center of the gradient space. You even see it popping out in 1980 in 1 year. And this showed up in crop after crop after crop, in year after year after year. The actual gradient conditions were critical for your yield. Next, and this is my great discovery, which has been completely ignored. Okay, what then is our agricultural future? Well, it's mostly about the future of oil, next, and gas. And this comes back to Malthus, and this is M. King Hubbard. They were really understood the basics, and they still apply. Next. And so even Borlaug, who got was in charge of developing much higher yield rice, which is all due to one gene, incidentally, a short stalk, so they wouldn't fall over if you fed them a lot more fertilizer. But he realized it was just a stopgap situation, and if the population kept growing, then people will be starving again. And I think that we're going to find that out this year. Next. And so I think here we're all worried about CO2, and the news is all concerned about climate change and stuff. But I see this much bigger wave of depletion hovering over our head. I think many people here feel that. Next. And so I did this I published this in 1975. And this is done in calories, but you convert it to barrels of oil and so forth. And the oil and gas is just about right. Just about right. So I've understood this since 1975 or before. The coal is probably 2 times too high. We thought, I don't know how much coal we'll get. It depends on how thin a seam we want to mine. Next. And that's just energy required for food. Incidentally, this is a marvelous book to read for fun. Dinosaurs at the Dinner Party. So we're going to talk about geology for a moment. Next. Petroleum geology in 3 minutes. Probably everybody here knows this. Next. You got to have a rift, like when Iceland was sailing off away from Scotland. You get a rift, and it's got to be tropical, because tropical means that it's the water doesn't mix top to bottom, and you get anaerobic bottom water. So you have to have those particular conditions, and you get a deep trench next, and then you get extreme algae growth, and then you have rains that fill in the rift, and you get 100 million years of pressure cooking next, and you get oil and gas. Oil, gas, and it's all developed. It's all created below this trap. And then we got oil for the first 100 years entirely from these traps. But next. And here's all the oil wells we've drilled in the US and Canada, just to give you an idea. We've pretty thoroughly explored the US. And this has to do with geological conditions 100 million years ago, that we had a big, vast inland sea here. Next. It was in the past, this is the production of oil in the US, and this is the total effort, total drilling. You see what the oil we produced, the quantity we produced each year from 1948 until 19, whatever that was, I can't see. 1978, or I'm sorry, until 2000 and something. When Trump says drill, 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 well, we drill a lot, but we didn't find more oil. We just decreased its EROI, decreased our efficiency at finding it. It's really quite amazing that you can't get more oil by drilling more. You have to drill intelligently. Next.
Dan has a question.
Yeah.
Dan, did you want to unmute and ask? Or was that an accident?
Yeah, I got it. There we go.
Okay.
Back in the 1970s, when we first peaked on production oil, President Nixon had a program that and put a lot of effort in it. We actually tripled the number of drill rigs here in the United States, well over 4,500 drill rigs, but it didn't equate into more production. The production still just steadily fell. So just by increasing the number of drill rigs doesn't mean you're going to be able to overcome the geology. Is what the evidence really shows.
Yeah, a little bit different now with fracking because it's well, I'll get there next.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, good, but and we looked at EROI for global oil production, and I don't know when. It's hard to say exactly how. We extrapolated this back in 2010 or something. The EROI typically increases and then decreases, just like a Hubbard curve. And we had, at some point, presumably it will cost as much energy to get, it'll cost a barrel of oil to get the next barrel of oil. Exactly when that will happen, I don't know. Next. God, we don't get the data anymore. That's another thing. The U.S. has stopped getting good data. So here's how much we've got in reserves. Here's the U.S. you see in to the right of the middle, and other people have a hell of a lot more oil than we do, and sooner or later it's going to catch up with us. So next.
Roger, you have a question? Are you able to get your microphone working there?
My camera still doesn't work.
Yeah, I know Roger's. Okay, hold on. He's
Roger,
gonna put it up on the screen. Don't
use IP. Sorry, Roger. They made my point, though, Roger. It was good enough for the moment. Okay. Well, here's a better. The green line is the good line. That's from the work I've done with Roger and with Jean Larrère, and we can send that to you if you want. It's continuing. We got problems. You know that. Next.
Okay, Ivor has a question. Ivor?
This was from a while ago, and you had coffee growing on the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica. I used to live in Costa Rica, and I can't believe it would grow there. It's so dry. I was wondering.
Yeah, I wonder about that point too, but that was the data that I got from the government of Costa Rica.
I wonder if it's a cold Pacific current coming up or something. I can't see coffee growing otherwise. Anyway.
Okay, I have the same question, Ivor. That's a hell of a good catch.
Thank you.
That's a hell of a good catch. Okay, so we used to find green line more oil than we used, red line. Now we use more than we find. So the integral of the difference between the green line and the red line up to 1980 limits the integral between the green line and the red line, which is now in the other direction. In other words, we're just using up the big fields we found in the past. So that's going to, fracking has saved our ass. Okay, good. Now, just very quickly, let me cover. The story is George Mitchell's daughter was sucking a milkshake, and when she got to the end, she turned her straw around and sucked out the bottom of the milkshake. This is the story. And that gave him the idea of horizontal drilling, 1 or 2 miles long, fracking the rocks, pouring down sand and water under super duper pressure. Next. And now we produce 85 to 90% of our oil and gas from fracking. For how long? Not clear. And George Mitchell, just think about what our relations with Russia would be right now if they had us over a barrel, which they would, except for George Mitchell. A lot of people don't like fracking. It's got environmental consequences like anything else, but it saved our political ass if that's important to you. Next. And so the idea is that the source rocks makes the oil and it would seep up into the traps. And this is what we used to get. And now we're going after the source rocks next. And this is a drill bit from a cutting from those source rocks. And you see the oil is very, very diffuse there and very hard to get it out. So Mitchell figuring out how to do that is a really amazing, amazing thing. Next. But of course, it takes a hell of a lot of energy to get that oil. Next. That's a site. But when you get it, you know, we used to get 20,000, 30,000 barrels from a vertical well because we'd use up all the good ones because there's no room left between the holes that we drill. But fracking would get 200 or 300,000 barrels from a well. And the energy return on investment, this is the only good study we have by Adam Brandt and his students. And look at the yellow line there on the right. And this is for Bakken, all the wells together in Bakken. And you'd get up to 35 to 1. That's a damn good ROI. And then they've been declining. I would love to have these graphs updated. It's essential for our nation to do this. And of course, there's nobody who gives a shit anywhere with any power. So anyway, I'm trying to tell you some really, really basic things about the future of your food. Next. Here are the basins all over the United States, but there's only a few sweet spots. Gammon, areas like that. And right now, it's Permian Basin here. That's where we're getting most. That's the only area that is not decreasing from fracking, except we get a lot of gas out of Pennsylvania. Next. And this is what it looks like. There's a well every quarter mile or half a mile. And this is a sweet spot. And you see they don't drill over to the left or the right. Well, there's no oil over there, or not much. So this is just all over our country. This is happening. And not very much else. A little bit in Argentina. Next. There's the future of that's where your state comes from. Just gives you an idea. This is up in Bakken, edge of Montana. And you see all of the black spots are wells. And then the lateral lines, the skinny lines, are 1 or 2 mile long laterals that are sucking the oil out of the ground. And so they sometimes do infill drilling between the existing wells, but then you're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. So looks like we're getting about what we can out of this land. And now Bakken has peaked and is declining. So it's not going to last for very long is the point. Partial, that's sort of where it starts. It's all about the sweet spots. Next. And so you got to keep drilling because they deplete. These are just from 1 year to the next, January to January.
Seems like they get more vertical.
Keep drilling new wells to keep up the oil production. Next.
Dan?
Yeah.
I talked before in my presentation last month the fact that when the wells are about 4 years old, they cannibalize the pipes. So those long tails or natural gas aren't there because the pipes physically aren't there. What the industry will tell you is like, oh, because we don't have enough infrastructure, we can't get at all this gas. Well, the other side of it is that's because they're cannibalizing the pipe because the pipe is more valuable for extracting oil than what they can get out of gas.
They pull the pipes out of the ground?
No, the pipe's on top of the ground. They turn the valve off of the well head and cannibalize the pipes.
Dan, when the hell are you going to submit a paper to my journal?
Well, I don't know. Well, but the other thing is you're asking how come they don't do more studies? Because if they did the studies, the fact I'm telling you would come out into the public. So they don't want to do those studies because of what I just said.
Well, we might write an editorial about that, you and me, sometime.
Maybe.
Next.
Okay.
Next. So this is, I don't know where this is more at all with, this is about when you will die. These were my students.
Oh my
gosh. This is low estimate, high, medium estimate, and high estimate. You know, it ain't gonna last long, folks. This is every possible fossil fuel you can imagine: coal, tar sands, all the crappy stuff. And
when the fossil fuel industry will die, basically.
Well, and you will die too.
Well,
Next.
we can grow food without fossil fuels.
Not at the level we need.
Yeah, not at the level. You're right. There will be definitely a transition.
And now, if you really want to understand this, you have to read these papers carefully. I'm just showing you highlights. Next.
Mm-hmm.
And so, next, this is Hubbard's pimple.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, yeah, sorry. It's because of the delay.
There's the invention of the steam engine. There's Stonehenge. This is just a blip in human experience, which is a blip in geology. So it ain't long, and we take it as normal. That's the thing. We think it's normal to have more energy every year. Well, it's just crazy. Next.
Yeah.
Next. Oh, this is our own work. You can read that at your leisure. Next. Well, it depends on what kind of, keep it for a moment. Whoop, go back.
Yeah.
You can keep it. So the purple is just real oil, the good stuff. And the blue includes the fracked stuff. The green includes extra heavy Venezuelan and Canadian stuff. And this includes natural gas liquids. And that turns out natural gas liquids are increasingly important. Provide a third of American oil now comes from natural gas liquids. But anyway, we're looking at that into the future, and Andre, what are you going to die? How old are you now?
I'm 38.
30, 40. You live 40 more years. How do you get this thing off the bottom of my screen, this black thing?
I don't know.
Get out of here. So I'm trying to figure when you're going to die. Go back.
Oh, okay. Well, because this is an old chart. We've got you guys have more updated ones.
It's no different now. Their updates are no different.
All right.
Wait a minute. I can't see 1960. I can't see the scale because this goddamn black
okay.
thing.
Okay. 2040 is where those black lines are.
2040. So you're gonna live. You're gonna live about till, I don't know, about halfway down. Halfway down. Okay, so you get, if you send me a postcard if you can figure out the address.
All right.
Tell me what's going on. Okay, next. We're almost done. So there we are. There's our ancestors, 3000 BC. Gone along with his energy devices, a spear. And then here's us. And he's got a bow and arrow, the guy going into the future. So will humanity continue? I think so, but not in spacesuits. Next. Maybe deep geothermal. I don't know. Next. Dan likes it.
Yeah.
Not a solution.
Yes, I do.
So there we are.
Okay.
That's the message.
All right. Okay.
And we got also you got to stop doing the bullshit economics we're doing now. So we should be teaching all economics in the United States using our book and get rid of every other economics book, and then we might have some hope. Now, if you think there's any chance for that, then I'd like to introduce you to my friend the Easter Bunny. Okay, questions.
Okay.
I can't turn my. I hate this jitsu system.
Oh.
Everything I try to do here doesn't work, Andrew.
All right. Well,
so I would prefer Zoom.
Doing our best here. So Rogers has a question. I don't know if. Okay, Roger says, Charlie, just an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, come on. I stole a lot of the ideas from you, Roger. So it's.
All right, guys. So can you ask Charlie some questions? I'll just be right back.
Put your hand down, Roger, unless you got another question. I think the questions that all of us collectively, this is an amazing group of people. I think the work you all are doing collectively is the best work I have seen on this since ever. Ivor.
Yeah. I've heard this thing that said that most of the farmers in the Midwest have not figured out yet what they're going to do about fertilizer. And I've heard recently that N, P are both stuck in the Persian Gulf, and K apparently the Canadians realized that if we put a 25% tariff on potash, they're not going to send us their potassium, which is the K. They could just ship it to Vancouver for that extra 25% and send it on a ship somewhere. So I just want to say that this year, we're going to have some real problems in the upper Midwest with getting enough fertilizer to plant everything. And I thought kind of like they might have it or something. I just saw something that said that most farmers hadn't figured that, did not have a stable contract for fertilizer this year. And so
the Midwest has contracts, but they all have force majeure clauses, and the South doesn't have as many. And they're buying up on the spot market quicker, I think, than I'm up in the Midwest. So it doesn't look good, quite frankly.
No, I was wondering if this is like, this is, and I also heard that they're going bankrupt at an unbelievable rate right now, the farmers in the Midwest. So I was thinking, this is, it in the past, we've always said, oh no, the amount of calories we're getting is going to go down, and oh my God, it's terrible, but it's in like some indeterminable amount of time. And now it seems like this time might be, next year, this fall, something.
I think it's possible that it would be this year too, from what I hear locally. Yeah, it doesn't look good, guys.
Yeah,
Where do they get potassium?
The potassium comes from this stuff called potash, which is basically mined in one place in Canada. I mean, there's a little bit in Michigan, different places, but 90%, I don't know about 90% of it, but some huge percentage of it comes from one place in Canada. I think it might be, seems to me like sort of the Midwest of Canada.
Phosphorus comes either from Florida,
Simon, you were muted,
or especially from the Western Sahara. Comes out through Morocco, and like all the South American continent has essentially almost no phosphorus. I mean, a little bit, but it's a very, very restricted. And then, of course, all nitrogen. Anybody who's got gas can make nitrogen fertilizer. Sure. But obviously, the places with cheap gas fundamentally make it. Okay, I see Simon. Well, Andrea, you're running this, so you tell me.
Yeah, Simon, go ahead.
So as it so happens, I'm actually sort of working on a data sheet that actually has that information now. And 31.18% of potash comes from Canada.
Wow.
And it looks like from a single deposit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of the world. For the world potash. Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, can't you get it out of your fireplace? Isn't that where we used to get it?
A little.
Well, that was that whole slash and burn, right? That's what they were getting.
Quantity and flow rate. Sure, you can get it from other sources.
I like the loyal Confederate woman saving their urine to turn into Confederate gunpowder. I'd really like to dig into that story.
Imagine, if you will, the deliveries.
So I do have there's a question in the YouTube and to the panel. They're wondering what the summer will look like. People around them accept that some jet fuel issues, but cannot fathom massive demand destruction and radical constrained adaptation. I'm just wondering about timelines. Will that be summer, or are we talking autumn, or what's going on too? Does anyone have a prediction based on the Hormuz and all that?
Well, it depends on. Look, I did actually do an analysis on what's been held up. What is not clear is what's needed immediately. Like how much of the existing stockpile has to go into planting immediately? Is it a just-in-time supply thing, or is it is there a buffer in warehouses? Then there is when do they actually plant? They plant now. Is this the food we plant now? We get next season. Therefore, we won't see problems till next season, or is it later this year? I haven't been able to untangle that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all good points. And I've read that or heard that a lot of this, I mean, we have had some initial increases in the price of oil and commodities, but because of the strategic reserves and stuff, we're not really going to see the main impacts until later this year or possibly next year if the situation is still ongoing.
It's just amazing, because I could take probably my computer, or a little bit better than that, my laptop, which is just a Dell, and I could probably calculate, if I had the data, I could calculate the flows of potash and nitrogen and all those kinds of things on a laptop. And here we have people using gigawatt computers to do mental masturbation Bitcoins and AI and on nothing, and we're just expending. And somebody's saying it's a half of U.S. GDP to calculate nothing, and
So-
we're desperate to have the data I would have in 1975, that the data we used to get routinely in the United States, and we don't get that. And a lot of it I attribute to those who advocate for neoclassical economics that said we don't need any data, let the market decide. Well, the market, this is the best example I can think of the market giving you absolutely the wrong answers.
Mhm.
It's astonishing.
Dan, and then Barbara.
Yeah. To answer a lot of this, I mean, we got the narrative of what the governments are saying, and then we've got reality. But the truth is, I mean, just like they had a post come out with the Washington Post, I think earlier on this week, when basically they come out, there was actually a lot more damage in the Middle East than what was being admitted to. But it really won't impact the governments really going into later this fall, going into next year, when they try to refill their strategic reserves. On what Andrew is saying is basically we're not seeing the effects because they're pulling oil out of the reserves. For example, here in the United States, they're actually leasing oil out. That means that's oil that has to be, basically replaced back here in the United States. But what everybody's not, and basically right now, what they're thinking is the crisis will be over, then things will go back to normal, and they're going to go back and basically refill their SPR, their strategic petroleum reserves. For example, Japan has already passed a bill there in Japan where they're going to increase the size of their strategic petroleum reserve, basically assuming that everything's going to go back to normal. My point is, this isn't going to impact when they try to replace that SPR, and they're not going to, and it's going to be very difficult to even do it. Then it'll start dawning on the policymakers that we're in a bigger situation than what they're willing to admit to, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's better to get a dry run of what it means to run out of petroleum through depletion.
I mean, right now the Iranians are planning on doing their toll booth thing, and they, just by the policy that they've already stated publicly, half of the production in the Persian Gulf can't pass through the straits because they're part of the coalition that injured their country, is how they look at it. So until like Saudi Arabia and UAE and Kuwait pay for damages in Iran, which I don't see happening, right? They're not willing to let oil be shipped out of the Persian Gulf from those countries. I mean, that's how the Iranians are viewing this.
May you live in interesting times.
Yeah.
All right, Barbara?
I lost my train of thought for a second, but we could calculate it the way we did with computers a few years ago, but I'm not sure we're getting accurate data. One of the things, one of the reasons the markets don't work is because some of the future markets allow manipulations.
Yep.
They price it, right? Only those prices aren't real because nobody ever ends up closing the contract sometimes, but they impact the spot prices. And so I'm not sure that we could calculate it, but only if we had good data. And I'm not sure that's, your point about the market's just totally not working. When I was listening to our presentation on Bitcoin, I thought about how we are overpricing virtual and almost the metaverse sort of resources, right? Only they're not resources. They're not real at all. There's nothing coming other than a little bit of entertainment. And so that's what's pricing the market. If you look at the companies that are driving the market, they're not companies that are in the real physical world, right? And
we financialized our economy, and that's the effect of it. It's not real things. The physical world and that virtual world are going to collide. which are
Well, and we used to hear economists talk about fiat currencies, and people would tell me that Bitcoin was going to protect them from fiat currencies. And I mean, I'm rolling on the floor, right? If Bitcoin isn't sort of the poster child for fiat currency, I don't know what the heck is.
I wanted to just mention about how the AI, it's kind of like a ridge religion, basically, because we ran out of oil, profitable oil investment a while ago. And then we basically, all of these Saudi sovereign wealth funds, they wanted to know what's the next oil, right? And then the AI executives were even saying before the Hormuz crisis, they were like, oh, AI is the new oil. They're like, give us your money, because the idea behind it is very similar to EROI. Basically, the idea that they're selling is that we can do more with less, or as in we can automate these jobs for cheaper, or the same thing as producing more food with fewer labor hours. However, well, as you can probably tell, the marketing didn't live up to it. And as soon as the Hormuz crisis happened, they stopped pretending it was the new oil. Okay, Ivor?
I was going to say that article that I just read by Steve Bull on the peak oil really told me I think the market is completely broken. I remember a couple of weeks ago they were saying that oil is at $90 a barrel or something, $95 a barrel. It's not working, right? There is no the actual delivery price for oil back then was $150 a barrel. So we're not getting it. So the whole market is just a ridiculous fiction. And they were also talking about how the U.S. dollar kind of went up because everybody was fleeing to safety, and now it's flatlining, and it's been flatlining for a while now, And maybe this is the crisis that breaks, global capitalism. I mean, there's no price. I was thinking about it. What is the price of a delivered barrel of oil if you can't get any? There's no real price anymore. There's just like, if you can get some, get it. And it leads to things like piracy, etc. Anyway, that's my take on it.
There's also a big divide between the stock price of oil and the real price of oil. Like, it was being held down for a long time at around 100, but you couldn't buy one for less than 135.
No.
Right now, North Sea oil is going for $150 a barrel. Physical.
Yeah. All right. So I don't think we'll have time for the coal to oil presentation, because we're past 2 hours.
Third month in a row, man.
I'm so sorry, man. Okay, next time we'll do you first. Okay, coal to liquid, and then Barbara. I don't know if you had a question or if you wanted to do a slide presentation.
We probably don't have time for that either.
Okay.
I'll try and do it next time.
Okay. Sure. Okay, sounds good. And okay. Does anyone have any final remarks or statements they want to make? Oh, and also I just wanted to say, Charlie, that was a very interesting thing you did about that gradient space.
Yeah, nice.
Like with that maximizing production for different kinds of crops. I think that has a lot of potential. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just checking for...
I'm an ecologist after all.
Yeah. So how about the 4th of June, first Thursday? Will that work for you people? Yeah. All right. Okay. So we'll do that then. And who wants to do our closing statement? Steve or Charlie? Or both of you? Okay.
Well, Andrea, you have I guess, spiritual perspective that I don't exactly share, but the thing behind you looks a little bit like the sun. And so I would say, let us all thank the sun for the energy that it gives us so that we can continue with our lives and have existence on the planet and hopefully be good to each other.
Amen. That's very good. Very good. Steve, did you have any final remarks?
Yeah, Charlie, there was a great presentation. The question I wanted to ask, simple question, you can probably answer in one sentence. Basically, from hunter-gatherers to simple farmers, then using livestock, and then now the modern agricultural. We've gone from like 10 to 1 to 1 to 10 in the EROI.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
So
The key, Steve, the reason we could do that in the past, I mean, in the past you couldn't do requiring 10 to get one because it came out of yourself. In the past, we'd invest one of our own energy in chasing a kudu or whatever and get back 10 or whatever, or gathering mangongo nuts or something. And the investment came from yourself. But that's what we've done is oil to us is just a commodity. I mean, it isn't just a commodity, but for the moment, it's just a commodity. It's just there. And it's like when a salmon came up the river here, I live in Oregon, came up a river in Oregon, and the native folks speared it. They didn't care how much energy the salmon used to swim around the Gulf of Alaska and concentrating all of the biological productivity and with very refined seasonal migrations and so forth and so on. All the native cared was that the gods presented him with this marvelous fish and he could catch it. And so we do that a little bit with the oil. We don't care how much sunlight it took 100 million years ago and how much geological pressure and whatever it took to make the oil. It's just a resource to us. We use it as it is there now. And so that's how we can do it. And we do it. And we do it because of something called maximum power. And maybe I should get my philosopher friend Tim McWhirter to join me. We've done this a number of times, give a talk on maximum power, which is an interesting concept.
That would be interesting. Get him on. I'd be happy.
I can get him easy.
Awesome.
He's easy.
But I guess in conclusion, Barbara made a good point. We went from the hunter-gatherer, which had 10 to 1. I even saw some data. I don't know if Charles, if you have saw this, that the fish pools that the Hawaiians did, the protein, it was like 60, 70 to 1.
Yeah.
Because they could manage that. Now you can't do that all over the world, but in there, when they did these big fish pools, they could get a lot of protein. But we went from this
back when there was a lot of fish.
That's when there was a lot of fish, correct.
And not very many people.
And not that many people. So now it seems like what I did that presentation on, we went from a lot of land, not that many people, high EROI for food production, to now massive food production with a very low negative 1 to 10. And then the final stage now is the technology magic, which Barbara had mentioned. And that's what it is. It's the technology is trying to continue pushing this civilization. And unfortunately, there really isn't anything really to back up this technology in the last 5-10 years.
There's no real physical return.
When you look at the energy return on investment, when you look at the profitability of it, it isn't. And so, and that's why
it's a negative return. It is an absolute negative return.
Right. It's a negative return. And unfortunately, this is where, I hate to say it, it's more of the West that has, especially the United States, has been pushing this, this massive expanse into the AI data centers and Bitcoin mining. And so I think when this bubble pops, it could be good for consuming energy. We would be using less of it because we won't need it. But that's where the growth has been. So that's where the magic has been. So I think it's going to be very interesting if this Middle East crisis continues in the next weeks and months.
Well, and you also mentioned debt, Steve, and it's a big problem. They're not going to be able to pay back those loans.
No, yeah, and unfortunately,
I watched something on our local PBS. Do you all get PBS? And get Passport if you don't have it, and then you can watch anything anytime. And go find a show called Wilding. I've watched it 3 times. I think it's just marvelous. Wilding on PBS.
okay,
Worth tracking down. I mean, completely different from anything we're doing, but it's I think a marvelous thing for us to think about.
But it doesn't work with high population densities. So the cities are toast. I just don't see how we can feed them.
No, well, you know, what I don't understand is we have such a difference between the wealthy and the non-wealthy, that if we could equalize that to some large degree, now the wealth doesn't necessarily translate into food,
Right.
except I think it probably does. It could, and the social equity question, I think, has to be addressed flat on, and you know how successful we've been at doing that. But
you know, equality will not make more oil. Equality will not make more natural resources, right? So
no, but it means that it's not going to be pissed off flying private jets down to Caribbean islands so that people can have multiple affairs. It's going to be, or so that they can have their living rooms decorated in gold. It can be used for things that make sense. I mean, we have in my hometown, Ashland, Oregon, we have homeless. Why in the world do we have homeless in this rich society? Mm-hmm. And, you know, they're often hardworking people. They just got bad luck. And now you can't buy a house until you're 40 in the United States. Yep. All this stuff is just crazy.
And by the time you're 40, you won't be able to buy it because of inflation in house prices and deflation in salaries.
And
when I was a kid delivering papers in near Boston, I'd read the Boston papers in 1950s in between my customers, and I can remember reading one headline that said that the wealthy paid 92% of their income to federal taxes, or all taxes, I don't know. And I said, and Eisenhower's president, and I'm thinking, well, that seems fair to me. It still seems fair to me. Now they pay less as a percentage than the poor do. Yep. So that whole mentality, and it's very, very much hooked up with peak oil and all the rest of the things we think about. And the problem is everybody is looking for an off-ramp, and that's why I think Simon's work is so important. That Simon says, well, you know, the off-ramp is pretty bumpy because we don't have enough copper.
Yeah, bumpy as hell. I'm going to do it the hard way at the last possible moment.
Charlie, you're talking about a subject that, first of all, there's a lot of misperceptions, and I'll try to explain this. So back in the 70s, my grandfather was a multi-millionaire and owned probably 90 some odd houses, probably 7 or 8 machine shops, a lot of other fishers and farms and stuff. And back in the 60s, he got into a big battle with the IRS. And the reason why, because my grandfather was paying himself $1 a year. I mean, when you own the local laundromat, the local grocery store, car dealership, you just don't have expenses. And how my grandfather finally settled this issue with the IRS, he started paying himself minimum wage. And it goes back to the tax code and how it's structured. and actually how wealthy people, real wealthy people are. Real wealthy people really don't make a lot of income. What they have is they have a lot of assets. So it makes it very difficult to tax somebody that's not making money, is the easiest way I can describe it. So there's a misperception out there as to what wealth is, and while you're trying to tax somebody that's not taxable because of the way things are structured.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I understand the complaint, but you're beating a dead horse.
And I just,
for example, I have millions of dollars in assets, but my wife and I make less than $100,000 a year on purpose. So that way I'm not taxed.
right.
Well, I didn't say how, Dan, so I'd like to tax your capital.
And I have no idea how you're going to tax my capital, because my capital is actually in assets, things that aren't taxable until I sell them.
Fair enough. So I just wanted to say that there is kind of money is kind of a proxy for energy, and that what if we want to give people a stable source of that energy, we have to go back to that sunlight that Charlie were talking about.
What Barbara was, for example, I can tell you right now, most farmers are millionaires, multimillionaires, just to the land they own. That doesn't mean wealthy people living high in the hog.
No, they're dirt poor.
Yeah, they're actually very poor, but they have a lot of assets. That's what really wealthy people are. They have a lot of assets, but not a lot of income. Farmers are a good example of that. You want to talk about assets? Farmers have a lot of assets. They're very wealthy when you look at the land. But that land,
I figured out how to make a small fortune making maple syrup.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to make maple syrup?
It's hard to make. Yeah.
My neighbor retired from it because it's just too much work.
You start with a large portion.
You start with a large portion.
How hard it is to make what?
Maple syrup.
Well.
Oh, no, I made maple syrup.
Yes.
My family made maple syrup in Massachusetts. I'm from good maple syrup stock.
What I'm saying
but
is,
at a commercial level.
I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, that's what my family did.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
my Uncle Merton sent 3 girls to college on 7 milkers. Think about that.
Yep.
But he did syrup, he did sugaring. We called it sugaring in Massachusetts.
Yep, sugaring.
And lots of experience with that, Barbara. And in fact, I have maple syrup this morning for breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
It's really good. It's full of potassium.
We should just dump it on the fields then. I'll suggest that to the neighbors.
Charles, if you want to
$120 a pound, that's a great idea.
Not to change subject, but if you want to go to a real good measure as far as like wealth inequality, there's been a lot of studies that show that the countries that had the highest energy consumption are the wealthier countries, and that's actually the best way to actually grade it or measure it. Or it goes back to the countries that have the most highest oil consumption had the highest GDP values. You know, United States, Japan.
I showed a graph of that.
I'm sorry.
I showed a graph of that today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you did. And so, what I was getting at is that one of our main issues right now is that land is being treated as an investment asset. Like Dan was saying that, it's often millions of dollars. It's very far disconnected from being something where people live and grow food. And in order to fix that, we have to come up with a solution to the problem of why is it an investment asset is because there's a lot of old people, boomers especially, who are using it as their retirement fund. So we have to figure out a different way of supporting these old people that's not based on their home value in order for them to be willing to allow house prices to go down where people can afford it to grow food. At least that's been a recent idea I had. I don't know if anyone has any ideas.
I think the issue is this: the market price of a home is based on the new cost of production. And so when you look at land, there's not a lot of it in certain areas for suburban homes. But then when you buy a brand new home, that's where all the other market values are based on. Even a home that's 20 years or 30 years or 40 years home, even though a brand new home, it's a lot of other components of a home are breaking down. You've got to replace certain things. But that's the problem today. And the reason why home prices are so expensive is because the cost of production of building homes has gone up, especially after the pandemic. They've come down a little bit, but now with this Middle East crisis, that's why I don't see home prices. They will fall, but I think they're based on the cost of production of a brand new home.
Yeah.
Well,
And
not just
that will
building a new
change.
one, but repairing the existing ones so that they can be sold.
Right. And that will change when we figure out we're not building the populations, we have too many homes. Because there's a lot of vacant homes in the United States and around the world. And so I think home prices can fall, not based on the cost of production, just because we're going to hit peak energy and there's going to be a less need of new homes. And then I think homes out in the country, especially on a piece of land, will do much better than suburban homes in the future.
But I would like to add that the reason that home production is so high is because of policies that are designed to protect house prices. So if you were allowed to have a piece of land and just live there in a tent, that would lower the house values. And so you are not allowed to do that. So you're forced to, by policy, to put a structure that costs several $100,000. It's not that it's required for life. We have never had to do that in history, except by policy. And that's why it's high price. So if you just had, and that's why you have to tackle that issue of the people who need these high values in order for their sense of safety and security. We need to be able to provide that sense of safety and security by transitioning to, say, a different model, maybe a community model, a rural production model or something, where their retirement is secured and it's not based on their house being expensive. And then we can change the policies and allow people to live in tents.
Well, or tiny houses, super insulated.
Yeah.
I go to a tiny house before a tent. I mean, I don't think, I mean, tent's nice and camping.
Well, yurt, a yurt,
Same kind of thing.
It's
That's
only
basically a tiny house.
$15,000 for an Alaskan yurt with plumbing.
Insulated.
So
insulated.
Yeah, exactly. So it's doable. It's all about, we just have to be compassionate for everyone involved in the situation. And the situation arose because of this whole idea that there would be infinite growth and the house prices would grow forever. And so we created the the policies in order to make that happen. And now we've just come to an impasse where we have several generations who aren't able to access land.
Right. Distributionism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, distributism. That's right. Yeah.
Distributism.
Yes, very good. Very good.
G.K. Chesterton.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's leave.
Wrap it up.
I've
Okay,
so
as we found you, we'll leave you in that infinite love and infinite light of the infinite creator within you and all around you, my friends. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in that infinite power and infinite peace. Goodbye. Until next time, everyone.
Thank you. I was just out, my wife is out planting an apple tree.